welcome. And it is Happy World Water Day 2021. We are so honored to have Drunvalo Melchizedek with us. And it's been about 9 months since he had been with us on the bridge last year. And with the waters that are healing, that we must through us and through the co-creative process with all of life, flora and fauna, and just with our hearts open. And from my experience from becoming a heart imagery teacher, as well as my original experience years ago, I believe back to my recall, back in 2014 is when I took Awakening the Illuminated Heart. That's when you changed my life big time, Drunvalo. Thank you for being with us. And I am so looking forward to what you have to share with us with your latest.
Well, you're sure welcome. Thank you for having me here, and thank all the people that are watching this. I hope this information helps you in healing and bringing balance into your life. I've been studying water, I don't know, really a long time, 40 years at least, and water machines that heal and all kinds of things. But I've learned a lot, and I hope that whatever I've learned will be beneficial for everybody here.
I just wanted to say my deep gratitude to you, Drunvalo, for your work, for your dedication, and for the many lives that you've influenced through your work, through your presence. And World Water Day, we are gathering a lot of water lovers around the planet, and your name comes up in each and one of them. So I just wanted to give my great gratitude to you, and humbly bow to your work and for who you are. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Michael. And I have gratitude for life itself everywhere, and it makes me happy to be able to serve the world. It does. I get giggly. And it's not work for me. It is a joy. So we're going to talk about water, and I know that we're aware, and almost everybody's aware, but this is a scientific thing, that water has memory. And it not only has memory of human life, but every single thing alive on the earth. Even things that don't have water in them. Like there's other life forms. There's not just life forms that are carbon, but there's life forms that are, they've discovered in the 1950s, a second element that gives life just exactly the same as carbon. And that is silicon. And it's exactly in the same octave on the periodic table. It's the same octave and just one octave down in the same row, and it's right underneath it. And they both have life. So in the oceans, you'll see silicon life forms that have no carbon whatsoever, but they're in water. They're surrounded by water. And so either way, it's just a different way of thinking about life and how to do it. But I'm really glad to see that crystals are being able to take on a different form of life rather than just the way they have for so long. I don't know when this began. I have no idea. We only discovered it just recently. It was only, let me think, maybe 15 years ago. I'm guessing at this. There was a woman who was an oceanographer, and she created this little submarine that would go down miles into the water with one person. And she went down there and looked around and didn't see anything, and was sitting there for a long time, but she had all her lights on and everything else like that. And then she thought, well, maybe that's a distraction. So she turned off all of her lights, went black. And within minutes, 10 minutes, all of a sudden this fish went swimming by that was day glow, glowing in the dark. And then this other one, and there's another one. And pretty soon the whole ocean was filled with thousands of these things swimming around that all had a means of communication by their bioluminosity. And we had no idea about that. And ever since then, the world has kind of been going a little crazy over the understanding of that. But life always finds a way, and it did in this case also. That's what they think on Jupiter. There's a planet. What's it called? I mean, not a planet, but a moon. I forgot. It was in 2001, I think. Anyway, that moon has water in the center of its Earth, in the center of its the moon. It's all water and with a thick crust around it. And they're really believing, they're actually deciding to make a journey there right now and see it for sure. But to break through that ice and go into the center core. And I think they're going to find the same thing. Day glow life forms that are swimming around inside there. And that's what they think. And I kind of agree with them. It's probably true. Because the water is not only water, but it's warm. It's warm water. So it's just ideal for life as we know it here on Earth.
Wow. May you please provide us some insight on electromagnetic fields and how that interplays with water?
Okay, I got to think about that a moment. Well, there's a lot of ways of looking at this. The electromagnetic, say the geomagnetic field of the Earth, and that is really caused by electromagnetics, and so that field extends through the Earth, and whatever happens in the geomagnetic field is another form of memory, because it also has full memory of everything that's going on. And so do the life forms that swim in there, especially the whales. The whales have been around for over 500 million years, and they have full memory of everything that's happened on the Earth for 500 million years. And they are immersed in water, and they exchange information. And so it's, the Earth is a very complicated, integrated system. It's not as simple as we think. Like that geomagnetic field that's around the Earth, most people don't know that they have a magnetic field around their bodies, but they do. And the newest research shows that it's at least 50 feet in diameter. We believe it's 60 feet, but we don't have the sensitivity yet to be able to test that. And so every single person, what we now know is that your memory is connected, has a memory only because your biomagnetic field is interconnected to the geomagnetic field of the Earth. If you move yourself outside of the geomagnetic field, you lose your memory, all of it, and you go crazy. That was discovered on the Mir space station when they first put the first person in there. They left him in there, and after 2 weeks, so he was running everything. One person, that was the first person to go on board it. He was running the whole ship, and then after 2 weeks or so, it takes between 14 and 18 days for people. And all of a sudden, he just stopped doing everything. And they go, "What's happened?" They couldn't communicate with him. He wouldn't talk with them, and they went back to. They sent another person up there. They got him out of there, put the other person in there, brought him back, and discovered that his entire memory system was erased, and that he was insane. And after 2 years of research, they finally came to the conclusion that it's incurable and there's nothing they can do about it. And they reported this to the United Nations.
Wow.
And so that's when we discovered that what they then made was a little electromagnetic thing that you put on your spacesuit. Now they're built into it that approximates the Earth's magnetic field. And by doing that, you can keep yourself alive. Right now we have a problem, and it's a huge one. I'm not really wasn't going to talk about it today, but I'll just mention it. The Earth's biomagnetic field is reversing itself right now. It's in the process. It's been in the process actually for thousands of years, but it looks like it's coming to a conclusion right now. That's what scientists in 2003 made a NOVA film about this. And they came to the conclusion that at that time, that by the end of the century, we would not have a biomagnetic field, or it would reverse and south would become north and north would become south. But at this point, they came back in a few years later and said, no, it's going way faster than they thought. And they're all still saying that it's going way faster than they thought. And now they think that it could happen at any time. They first said 25 years from now, and now they're just saying, we don't know, but it could just happen at any time, because huge areas of the North magnetic field were found around Australia and New Zealand. I mean, things as big as Australia, areas. And that was just in the beginning. And now more and more and more, the South pole is magnetically north, and the North Pole is magnetically south. But it hasn't made this switch. But when it does, that's like the Mir space station. If you don't have a Merkaba, or you don't have one of those little electric devices, within 14 days or so, you will lose your memory and you will go insane. And this is why it's a very serious thing, and it's really important that you know your Merkaba, because all you got to do is tell your Merkaba to, if that happens, to recreate an approximation of what's going on, and you will be fine through this. So let's go back to water.
Wow, that's so fascinating how, what we've learned, what I've learned in school are the things that really didn't touch upon this. And, because we are honoring the water on World Water Day, I personally feel compelled to take this on beyond World Water Day, but because water is life, and it's what connects us all together.
Water, I would like to speak about this in a moment, because the world's oceans, according to the scientists, we've got almost all this documentation right now. I'm going to put it out within a month or so onto a book, and I'm going to release the book it'll be The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, Volume 3, and it'll be Part 1, and then there'll be a Part 2 and a Part 3. And but the Part 1 is going to be about what is going on in the climate change of the world, because the governments of the world have decided just to be silent and not tell anybody anything. That's just not responsible. I know they understand. They think we'll go crazy and all that kind of stuff, but we have to know. We need to know what's going on, because we need to know, because we're the only ones that can correct it. The scientists can't do it. They've already admitted they've given up. We're way past that. We're way past it. We passed that somewhere around 30 years ago, being able to, I don't know when, 30 or 40 years ago, being able to actually fix these problems scientifically. Now, they may invent something new that nobody's ever heard of and come right in and fix it. Let's hope they do. But right now, the only choice that I can see is human beings becoming enlightened and becoming pure in their thoughts and their hearts, and being able to do something that has been done, excuse me, many times in other places in the universe, where they just go in and they fix the mess they made before they leave.
I would like to speak into that, and I believe that within the human capacity is the potential of each and one of us to connect to water. And so it's almost like learning how to ride a bike. When we look at a bike, we see the concept of it, and then we start riding it, and we're connecting with it. And so I believe that we need to go beyond the idea of looking at water as a chemical compound or something that we put into our body and hydrate us. And you were talking about memory. I would like to take that a little further and say water actually has consciousness, or water is consciousness, and therefore each and one of us are a creative expression of nature and consciousness in a physical form. So all of life has water in it, and so we're simply a creative expression of that. And at the same time, I'm also, what I want to put out there is if we are going to start to build that relationship with water, and we're becoming aware of what it truly is and learning how to ride a bike, then we also have to come to the conclusion that water is perhaps observing us. So we're not just looking at water and we're influencing water and its structure with our thoughts and our emotions and our actions, but water is the reflector back to us. Water is observing us. And once we are starting to connect to water, then water will assist us to find the solutions within humanity to shift into a different level of consciousness.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. The just to show you that water is aware of us and connecting to us, they have found that Earth has 200 tons of water arriving every day from space. 200 tons. It comes here. It doesn't go to Mars or Venus or anywhere else. It comes here because we have life here and we have water here, and it's attracted to here. But that's pure science. They have actually tracked it. That's like a drop in the oceans, but still, it over time, it's water. It keeps raising the oceans a little bit all the time.
I was under the impression that the same amount of water that was here billions of years ago is still the same amount of water than is here today.
Oh.
So
science has proven that's not true.
Wow.
That it's constantly, and it's also going inside the Earth. A lot of it, not just where the ocean floor, but inside the Earth. There's so much water they're finding inside the Earth that if that water ever came out, it would really, really raise the oceans a lot. Right now, because of the carbon dioxide that's going into the atmosphere, where we have gone over 400 parts per million, the last time that happened was 780,000 years ago. And it melted every square inch of ice on the Earth. And if that were to take place right now, and all the ice of the Earth were to melt, it would raise the oceans over 200 feet, about 220, I think. And that's going to happen because we can't, unless we stop what's happening on the Earth, then we can't fix it.
So you know what's really fascinating to me, that all that being said, is the thoughts that I have is if we come together as a collective and raise our vibration, well, would that possibly affect the amount of water there can be on Earth, less or more, or harmonic? Where does it actually come from? These are the things I actually wonder about.
Well, they don't know where the source of the water is. Like every comet is nothing but frozen water around it, most of them anyway, and everything. And they come from everywhere. But most of the comets that we see that come into us have been captured by the sun in one way or another. We have a sphere outside of what we normally think of our solar system is Pluto is about as far out as we can go. Extend that about 1,000 times, and then you have the actual size of the actual known universe, known solar system. They found at least 5 and maybe we're looking at 2 more planets that are bigger than Jupiter, that are captured by our sun. They're so far out there that we don't even know about them. But the rockets that we're sending out there can see them, and we know what's going on. And there's a huge sphere around here made up of big chunks of stuff, not just the one made from a planet, but a sphere. And when I was working with David Suzuki in British Columbia, he got the Nobel Prize by watching comets come in through, breaking off of there and coming through the solar system, and how they reacted. And he applied that to human cells and was able to see things that nobody had ever seen before. And because of that, he got the Nobel Prize, just by watching the comets coming in, because they bring information into us. And they're like little spots on the DNA. It's really amazing. I mean, this is one big thing, and one big universe, and it's all interconnected. And yes, it's quantum. It goes down infinitely into small stuff and out into big stuff. But no matter where you are, it's always the event horizon. You're always sitting there. You can go down to the littlest thing you can never see, but within your body will also go down that size. And when you're there, you're exactly like you are here on this earth. It always looks the same, and it's always the same situation.
So, so when I hear you speak, is it possible that with the water that is arriving on Mother Earth on a daily basis, that water has to have memory, and that water has to have consciousness? So is it possible that global consciousness is expanding or increasing? I don't know whether there is actually a name to that, because of the information that comes from the water, from outer space towards us? Do you think that there is a connection between that?
Well, water can have its memory erased, and that's very possible. And this water that's coming in from all over the world is coming spherically to us from everywhere. And it comes in little pieces, and when they hit the outer side, they melt, and it comes in like a very soft fog that's constantly coming into the earth. And that's how when I read all of this, that's what I interpreted to mean. And I don't know. You would think it would have memory, as long as it didn't go through something that erased its memory. There are things that can do that. There are really strong magnetic fields that can erase the memory of water, and just like they do on credit cards. And but we, like you said, we are water, and we are one with water, and we have the ability to discuss, to talk about water, and talk to water. And let me, I was thinking, how could I give a personal experience on how I learned about a lot of this stuff? And I went back in time to, I guess it was in the early 1980s, when I learned. I was living in New Mexico, and I was on a desert, and I had a little piece of land, and I didn't have any water, and I needed to find water, but I didn't know how. So I got a water witch. He was a male, and he came out and did this. And when he did it, he got done. I says, "Can you show me how to do that?" And he did. In about a couple hours, he said, "This is what you do," and he showed me the whole thing. And then I went out and did it. And when the first time I did it, it transformed my life immediately. I mean, I was never the same after that, because he was using willow sticks, because willow trees find water. That's what they're, water trees. And for forever, that's what they've been using, is willow sticks. So you just find one that comes down into a straight line and then has a little V coming off at the end. And you hold it by the 2 pieces coming in with one stick going out. And And when you're walking on a thing with the intention that you find, and you have to be very clear with your intention, that you find clean drinking water, not water that's in a sewer or something. You have to find the kind of water you want. And so you go in, you start walking over the land, and when you get close to it, when you're about 20 feet away from the edge of the river that's under the ground, you'll start feeling the end of your stick pulling to the ground. And later I learned that if I held it and just kept walking, it would break the end off. I broke it off a lot of them. It seems impossible until you see it happen. And because it is the water pulling the stick down. And anyway, it's just the most amazing thing ever. And I've taught several people how to do this since then. And the same thing happens to them when they get up there and they feel that stick going to the ground and they can't stop it and it just goes right to the ground. They know that that's not normal. They know that that is something unusual, and over time, you really start changing. I became friends with a woman that was a water witch, and her husband drilled wells for water, right? So it was a perfect combination. And I became their friends for a lot. And I learned everything from her. Now, this other guy taught me that when you wanted to know how deep it was, you went from the edge of the water, from the middle of the water, when you find the middle, and then you just start walking and measuring how far out you go. And so say it's a couple 100 feet down, you go out a couple 100 feet, and then right when you get almost there, that stick will start pulling to the ground. And you'll know how, and then you can stop going, say, 50 feet at a time to maybe 10 feet to maybe 1 foot at a time. And then you can get it really precise. It's 207 feet to that water from that spot. And well, that's where my beginning of my education was on this. But with her, I went through this all with her because I was learning from her. And by the way, when he said they could tell you anything about the water, they could tell you the exact temperature of the water, which way it was flowing, left or right. They could tell you exactly what year or years it will dry up in the future, and you can go 200 years or whatever you want. And they anything you want to know about that water, the water can tell you. And so when I started realizing that I was actually communicating with the water, that changed my whole thing. It just everything. It just changed everything. And later I met another guy who showed me, well, you can find water, but instead of connecting to the water, you connect to the earth, and you can find anything in the earth that you want. You can find all the gold, all the oil, and I went through a training where I found every single oil well where they were in Colorado, and I found every single gold mine that had ever been found in there just by having a map and using the pendulum, and it would tell me right where they were. And I can find anything. I still can. I can find anything. Even right now, I could just stand up and go do something and know it'll work every single time.
Wow, it's fascinating. I love the fact that you had used the willow tree as an example, because when I lived on the Sunshine Coast last year, we had a flood in the house that I lived in. We found out that it was from a willow tree roots that was looking for water, and it broke the concrete.
40 feet up into the air, into the soil. I know, it's true.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, actually, all trees are moving water up trees against a huge amount of pressure that should be impossible, but every tree does it. So what do you say?
Exactly. I heard too, I don't know if this is correct, but I heard a story of a logger who cut trees down. It was very much alive. They were clear cutting, and he would put the roots kind of like upside down.
Yes.
It wasn't the water, it was weeping not downwards towards the ground because it was upside down. It was going the other way. So he couldn't explain how that was happening.
Well, there's a movie that just came out. It's fantastic. And I really recommend everybody watch this movie once and watch it all the way through, because you don't really find out what it's all about until you get almost to the end. But they found that trees are conscious and that they help their children. And that if a tree, they actually send chemicals through the roots and into the earth and over to a particular tree that's a baby that's coming up, and they're trying to help it. And they can prove this. They've shown it scientifically. And it's just the whole thing of life on this planet is way more integrated and more conscious than everything is conscious here. It's one big conscious ball, and including the earth herself. And so we're in this really dark place right now. We think everything is bad and everything's wrong and we're sick and all these things, but it's just because we're focusing on darkness. Focus on light, and it'll all change. Be happy. And
don't worry, be happy.
Well, that was a big statement. That was
and I also think that we are contributing to the pollution of our planet with our thoughts and with our emotions, and specifically right now in this time of global uncertainty and the fear and the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And I believe that we as human beings, each and one of us, need to recognize the potential that we have, and within that is an opportunity to shift everything back.
We do right now, but there's coming a moment, and I think it's this year or next, I really believe, where there's going to be a big change on the earth, and we're going to realize exactly what you're talking about, and we're going to and that this book that I'm writing, it first tells how bad it is and proves it, but so that we then give you the solution to how to change this. It's Awakening the Illuminated Heart, everything that was taught in there. And all the teachers are prepared. They're sitting there ready to go and everything else. And then exactly how we can do this is the third part. It really only takes a minute. Well, it depends on how you think about this. But from Claudette's teacher, Coletta, she is an amazing person. You can change anything in the world by connecting to the world and to the magnetic field, and you just present a new image into the world, and that image can become alive and take roots. In her case, she had to show this to these doctors that she was working with. I was there in Jerusalem with them when she did this. And the doctors that were there didn't know about the schools that she had. I knew all the schools she had. They thought she had one, and she had 5 or 6, depending on how you think about it. And I was talking about the 6th one, which is you don't talk about until you've mastered the first 5. And these were medical doctors, and we were talking about healing in a way that she had never talked about, and regrowing arms and legs and everything else. And so she then had to turn to them and say, well, okay, I haven't told you everything yet. And he's talking about how to do world things and global levels. And you can't even think that way right now, but I'm going to talk about how I did it. She lived in a valley. She's living in Jerusalem now, and she's a Moroccan Jew, I think. I'm not sure. I might be wrong on that, but I think that's where it is. And she was living in a valley somewhere, and in Europe, and this is during World War II, and the Nazis dropped. There was only about 10 or so little villages in this big wide valley. And the Nazis dropped letters, leaflets all over the valley around the cities. They can pick it up, and it says, "We're going to blow up every one of these cities tomorrow morning, and so leave this valley because you're going to die if you stay here." And so she went and she felt that it required 3 people, a male, a female, and the third one could be male or female. And that is one of the Birkeland current things that I'm not going to talk about now, but it is one of the ways that they can work. And so anyway, what she did, the 3 of them got together, they connected with the earth, and they went in and changed the memory of the Nazis people where they forgot the name of that little village that they were in. And when it did, it changed all the maps of the world. Instantly, silently, they're all gone. And this is the nature of the planet we're in. We can change things in ways that if you don't look real quickly, you may not know. But it may be a really big one, like we change all the oceans so that they can be beautiful again. That could happen in less than 1 second. Poof, like that.
I always think that if we wash, every time we wash our hands, every time we take a shower, every time we take a drink, if we would send a vision of love and gratitude and harmony and compassion and empathy with that water into the sink, which then runs into the taps and the rivers and the stream, and ultimately lands up on the ocean, yes. That could be each and one of us part to do that.
I never drink water or take a shower without talking to it and thinking it and feeling grateful to it, because it's what creates life everywhere. I remember having a long talk with in Sedona with Dr. Amato, and he was saying, water is the source of life. It is the only source of life. But coming from sacred geometry, that's just one of 4 other elements. There's fire, earth, air, water, and chi. Science didn't know what it was, and they called it ether for a long time, but it's just chi or prana. And the 6th one is a sphere, and it is a vacuum. It's nothing. There's nothing in it at all. But all of the 5 platonic solids, the outermost points on all of those shapes fit perfectly into a sphere. So there are dots that are all rearranged on the sphere, and they came out of nothing. And so to have life, you have to have all 6 of those things. They all have to be present in the place where you say that life will be. And here we have the sun. There's the fire. We are on a planet. We have the earth. We have an atmosphere, so we have air, and we have water, but not always. And we have prana is everywhere. The one thing that's missing is water. And so if you don't have water in this situation, you don't have life. But it could be different somewhere else. It could be, maybe there's no atmosphere, and so you could have water, but it won't produce life. And so there's different ways that it could happen, but I think you understand what I'm saying here. So he really fought with me for about 2 hours. No. And then he says, well, okay, yeah, you got to have the sun, you got to have the earth, you got to have. I says, yeah, they're all those things, but we have all those things, but the water. It's like when I was with the Kogi in Colombia, and I spent time with them, and whenever they would have a meeting, they would always do it on rocks that were halfway buried into the earth. And but they would do one thing else. They would always bring a little bowl of water and set it there, unless there was water flowing right by them or something. But if there was no water right there, they would always put a little bowl of water there so that they could get all of the elements that they needed. And then they knew that when they created a new image, that it would more than likely be created. God, all life everywhere still has the final say in things. And but we are about to learn how to talk and become the whole universe, not just here, everywhere. And we have everything we need right now. And when we do that, uh, uh, it's actually in your outer, for those that know the Merkaba, it's the alpha, uh, the omega sphere, the big one that's out about 60 feet around you. And that one on the outside is connected directly to all life everywhere, physically. But on the inside, it is dark and it's stars. And from on the inside, after you do a certain thing where it's a meditation that we're going to teach in volume 4, you can you begin to stream hundreds of thousands of volts through your body. It won't hurt you. You won't even feel it hardly. And but you've seen these galaxies where there's a little stream of light going out the top and one going out the bottom. We can do that too. And they used to know that in ancient times because they said that we were a mortal coil. And it is basically a coil that creates this field. And we have one of these in us. And so under the right conditions, we can connect with all life everywhere. And we can, and all life everywhere, when we ask for something, they will give it to you.
You're so right. You know, I asked for something when I had electro hypersensitivity,
Yeah.
and then I had some fun with last year. I sent you a little thing,
Yeah.
and because it affected my life, it affected Michael's life, and we just want to share this with everybody, right? We want to make it accessible. So yeah, if you can remember.
Well, when we do this part 1 thing, I'm going to put all these documents. There's about 3 of them that are astounding, and especially the last one that came up in January of 2021. It tells the truth. It tells scientists from all over the world it's just massive amounts of documentation. And you will read that and you will know exactly what's going on in the world right now. It's clear and it's scary, but it's the truth. And you just when you're faced with the truth, there's only one thing to do. You meditate with your eyes open.
Yeah, it's all the time.
Yeah, always connected and always looking for whatever it takes to bring life to a higher level and put them in joy and happiness. And
That's right.
Because that's what we're really here for. We're not here to kill each other and to do bad things and all that. That's just BS. We are here. We're here on purpose. We came here for a reason, and it's become really convoluted ever since we've entered into the Industrial Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
It's become very bad ever since then, and so now we are either going to do one of 2 things. We're either this planet's going to die. It'll come back alive again. It might be a long time, but it will come back. It's done it 5 times before, and it'll do it 6th time. But at this end of this time, we have a moment. It's just a little bit of time where if we are prepared, we can change the world and we can go on to another whole level where we are connected everywhere. We don't have physical form like this. We just are the universe.
Yeah. Together we can co-create and rebuild a structure of life, correct?
Yes, but we don't even have to be together.
Oh, interesting. I like this.
Take one person. And it's easier with 2 or 3, but it can be done with just one. And one person, pure, really understanding, could change life on Earth. and everybody would just be amazed and didn't know what happened, and they would be sitting there giving stories about it. But why did it change like this, or who did this, or was it God, or what was happening? You know, I don't know, but we can do this, and I have seen it happen on other planets, and I know that it can happen. It's amazing, but it's really fast. It's just really, once the intention is released, it is everywhere. It's just like the Birkeland currents. Once an intention is released, the intention is everywhere in the universe at once, without time, and distance doesn't make any difference at all. The
Wow.
new math that's coming up shows that time is not real, does not exist, and space does not exist. They're both things that are just in our heads, but in the outer world, they're not real at all.
Wow. Yeah. So, you know, the things that are real that we perceive and the things that we know that are going kind of sideways. You had mentioned earlier that we have the knowledge, we have the tools. And it's up to, even you said, just one person to create that intention and create and change everything.
It has to
Correct?
be, the one person would probably have to be done through the Birkeland currents, which isn't until volume 4. But we're giving you the Awakening Illuminated Heart, which will, that is a little different. You have to go from the 3rd to the 4th dimension, and then you start moving up through levels, and it takes time. But really, once you get to the 4th dimension, you can do it. Definitely by the time you get to the 5th dimension, you don't have a body anymore. You're just pure spirit. And you can do it from there. But we're going to do this. It will happen. We couldn't have all come here for this with all, it took everybody so much time and energy to get to this place, to do this thing. And it's not going to, we're not going to fail. This is going to happen. I know this because I'm coming from the future, and I know what happens, and I know what happens. It's hard to explain. It's kind of like the Nautilus shell, where it starts out at 0, then 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger as it goes out. But as you go in toward the 0, it gets farther away from the golden mean. As you get higher up, if you get to 50, divide 55 into 89, and you get very close to the golden mean because you're out farther. And it's the same kind of thing. From where I'm coming from, I'm in another octave of universes higher. I'm just starting there. I'm in the base chakra. I've just been there for a while. And they wanted me to come back here because there was something on the 3rd level, the 3rd, where it went from 0, 1, 1, 2, 3. At 3, there was something that happened, and it happened on this planet. We can see that, but we can't, it's like being out of focus. We can't really see what happened. And we're now about to see what actually happened from that level. And that will help us to understand how we got out of this mess that we were in, not only here, but all over the universe. We were problems. You know, you've got the reptiles going around killing planets like popcorn. And you got all kinds of things going on in this one that are similar to what's going on here. And we just need to know something that we don't really understand. And when we do it and we live it and make it real, this is all over. And we're going to do it. We're all gonna do it, and we're doing it together. But how it comes together, whether it's one person or 80 million, I don't know. It just depends on, and I don't know if it even really matters, because it's just a matter of doing it. Nobody can ascend right now. Nobody has ascended for a while, because I'm talking to the ascended masters, and they said, we haven't been joined by anybody. Because Mother Earth is holding all of the ones that have ascended, but they're still here. She's holding them until we do that one thing, and that is bring the earth back into balance and beauty and purity, and then she'll release everybody.
Wow. Please explain to us what is structured water.
Okay. Structured water is a water molecule with all the outer electrons on it. Unstructured water just means it's missing one or more electrons. And so let me just talk about this a little more. I learned that a long time ago, but I didn't know what it meant. And science knew about it, but they knew that there were two kinds of water, but they didn't know what it was. And it was in, I'm guessing about 2005. I'm saying, I gotta get some water. Excuse me.
I'll have a glass of water too.
I don't know where it is.
Here it is.
Here it is on the other side of the screen.
To the waters.
Okay, yeah, okay. I'm better now. In Florida, there was a medical team that started doing research on structured and unstructured water, and they discovered something incredible. It's so incredible that I don't know why every single person on earth doesn't know this, because there's so many people have been talking about it. But they discovered that in every life form that they were able, and now it's been duplicated all around the world, but they discovered that there's in the human body, that wherever there is structured water, the cells in that water are healthy and balanced. There's nothing wrong with them. But in unstructured water, it's only around an area where there are diseased cells. The cells are emerged in unstructured water. And I need to get more of it. I'm in this room and it's really dry in this room. Wow. Anyway, so this meant that, and this is where a long time ago, before you have an Omni machine, it's called Omni?
Omni card.
An Omni card. That's very interesting what you've done. Yeah, it's a good thing. But if you use it and learn from it, then eventually you won't need it, because you'll be able to structure your own water. And when you do, you don't get sick anymore unless you want to. If you want to get sick, then okay, that's your prerogative. So let me see, where was I? The structured, unstructured
water.
We were talking about
the electron.
Slim Sperling, that's what it was. He was the first one that I knew of. He was working with coils that he could create a positive side on both sides, or a negative side on both sides. And that was never, it's been done before, but a long time ago, and nobody knew about it. And so he was one of the first ones in modern times to be able to do that. And he found that if you just held the one of these flat rings over the body, that in a matter of seconds, all the water in your body was structured. And it does it to other things. Like I was in Japan, I worked there for 10 years. That's where I met Dr. Amato. And
You're talking earlier about the electrons, structured water having that electron and not.
Yeah, I know, but I know what it was. I was in a class there. I was giving a class there, and there were 3 people there that were professional wine tasters. And I mentioned to them that you could take a bottle of really cheap wine, slide it over there, give it a minute or two, and take it off, and now you've got about a $40 or $50 bottle of wine. It's really true. What I just said will work every time if you have a coil that's real. And it's the same thing. It structures the water inside the wine, and you don't have any unstructured water in the wine, and it just tastes really good and really clean and beautiful. And so your Omni card uh, uh, does that also, and it does it in a way where it radiates out spherically about 15 feet. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes. What I found too in the last 6 months is that someone who was very sensitive. They're a set of twins, and both of them are very sensitive. And one had actually demonstrated what the male side did and what the female side did. He actually gestured it with his hands.
Yeah, I can
And
feel holding
yes,
one
and
aside. I
then
feel the electrical energy going in, and it's male and female. You're right.
mhm. And what we have been dealing with the last year is that it has a radius omnidirectionally of 6 to 10 feet. Now, what's interesting is that this young fellow, he could feel the field go out further, almost 20 feet. And I didn't hear of that before.
Well,
So
it may
it's,
be his sensitivity.
mhm.
When I was teaching people to be aware of and conscious of their biomagnetic field, a lot of people could only feel it out just a few feet, but it's way out there, and some people could feel it out at 50 and 60 feet out there. I think it depends on the person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to my recall, and it's been years since I've read your first book, the Ancient Secrets of the Flower of Life, that there had been many technologies where it can only be operated through consciousness. Is that correct, or did I get that correct with my memory?
Well, say it again. I didn't
Um,
quite understand.
there are technologies that you had mentioned in that book where it would only work with the right consciousness. Is that right?
Yes, that's almost always true.
Mm.
If you don't have any consciousness, usually nothing's going to work for you too much. I mean, and I don't mean you're dead, but I mean, if you're really low in not IQ, but just conscious awareness and consciousness, uh, then uh, all kinds of things that we call uh, psychic abilities and these kinds of things, and just a lot of stuff, you just can't do it. And so it requires a certain amount, and to do the awakening illuminated heart also requires a certain amount of consciousness to be able to do that all those steps. We found from millions of people going through this over from 1984 to the present time that it's about 15% of the people cannot do any of this levels of things. They just can't. They want to, but they can't. And I've tried, and I've worked with some of them really hard. I worked with one for over 3 years, and it just, he never was able to even move 1 inch above where he was. So you can be human, but that's not a good enough thing. You need to have a little more understanding. And it isn't IQ. IQ may be affected by it, but it isn't IQ. It is your ability to become one with different aspects or parts of, or the whole thing of life. You can connect with just water, but you can connect with the sun too, and that's to me, it's even more powerful in a way. But you, you just, it's the ability to communicate and connect and become one with that thing.
Well, thank you so much for all your insights. And I know there's a lot of suspense now with a series. It's a series of
Well,
books, right?
I did want to finish the thing I was talking about with dowsing, because
Yes.
this is a really important part, and I didn't get to the point where I could say it. Okay, so I was working with these two people, a person who could do the dowsing, and the person who drilled the wells. And by the way, she would come out with a list, and she would write down everything that water was, every mineral that was in that water, the temperature, where it was going, what was doing, the years, all those things, and anything else they wanted to know. And he would guarantee that if one thing on that list wasn't true and they could prove it, he would give them the well for free. And he never had to give a well away for free ever, because she was always correct. But she went through an evolution on this, and I went through it with her. At first we would walk across the land. We had to be on the land, and we had to be walking across the land, feel the water, pull it down, find the middle, begin to talk with the water and say, okay, what years will you, and you start giving the years, and when it came to the year, it would pull down, and whatever we asked the water, we would just go through it slowly until we can get to the place where it was, and we'd feel it go down. And we were never wrong. But then one day she says, I was sitting there and realizing that I don't have to be on the property to do it. I could just have a map of the property. And that goes along with dowsing that I had learned, because when I learned how to do it from this one guy, he was really good, and I wanted to know how he did these things. He took me to Colorado and to his house, and he had a 3-story house, and he had shag rugs throughout the whole 3 stories. Not me, but that was a long time ago. And his wife would hide a corn kernel somewhere on one of those 3 floors, somewhere in the shag rug, and he would give me 60 seconds to find it. I got to do it every time, because wow. He showed me how. He says, here's story 1, here's story 2, here's story 3. You begin with the pendulum and ask, where is it? And the pendulum will, somebody else could be moving that around, so you don't even know where it is. Doesn't matter. It's even better that way. And then the pendulum will start spinning, and it will pull, and you can feel it pull down to a spot until it actually touches the paper. When it does, I open my eyes and look at it, and I put a little circle there. And I know that is where the corn kernel is in that house. It's either in 1, 2, 3. If it's in the 3rd floor, I run up to the 3rd floor. I run into that very room, and I know approximately where it is in the room. And I go to that. It's about a 2 square foot space, and I go in there and I run the thing over the top of it, and I can see even closer. And then I would take out the dowsing rods, and they would just pull right down to it. And I'd dig in there and pull it out. And I did that about 10 times until I was convinced that this is really real. and so I learned that from her, that when she would, she says, I don't need that. I just need a map. And she would sit there and say, she says, I'm talking to the water on the land. And it doesn't matter that we're separated, because we're one. And so I'm going to draw where all the rivers are that are underground. And she would just draw them out. Just make lines, like just do it all at once. And there they were, and they were perfect. If they made a little curve or something like that, that was the river making that curve underground. And then she wanted to find out what years it would be dry. She would start going through the years, and really fast. It was 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And it would just stop her. and so when she was connecting with the water in that particular stream, if there was more than one stream, she would be saying, I'm working with this stream, and she would ask it questions and write them down. And then she found out later, when they tested all these things and everything, that it didn't make any difference if she walked out on the land and did it, or if she did it from her house. It didn't make any difference. And that was a big one for me. And later I know that like I taught this guy dowsing, and he had 1,000 acres in Utah, I think it was. And I went to visit him and one time just to say hi and see how he's doing. And he was he's about as old as I was now, now. And he said, I want to know if there's any oil on this property. And so I just put the pendulum up over the property thing. He had a huge map. It was like it was a big one. So I could really see where it was. And I would just hang it over there, and I wouldn't have it pulled down. I would ask it a question, yes or no. And if it spin one way, that's no. If it was spinning the other way, that's yes. And so I'd say, is there any oil on this property? And it would just say, no. Just, no, there isn't any. So I told him there's no proper oil on this property. And he says, well, that's what everybody's telling me. We can't find any oil. He says, but is there any gold in this property? And I said, I don't know. And I found 3 places, very precise on that thing. And he goes, wow, I don't know. I'll have to check that one out. And then he said, there's 3 indigenous Native American ruins on this land. Can you locate them for me? Because he knew where they were. And so he watched it. I just connected with the land, and then asked it where the gold was. I did that. Then he asked me where the Native American ruins were, and I went and found all 3, but I found a 4th one, and he didn't know about that one. And so he told me he knew about 3, but 1, he didn't know about the gold things. And so I left him. It was about maybe 6 months later, he came back and said, you're right. I've got 3 areas that have gold on my property, and 2 of them are pretty good. And he says, you're right about the Native American place, because we went there and found, we didn't know it was there. It was buried. And we really went into it and seriously looked, and it was there. It really was there. And so anybody can do this. In fact, in this audience, I'm sure there's probably maybe 50 dowsers and knows exactly what I'm talking about. Or
I know exactly what you're talking about. My first experience in dowsing was I made them out of old wire coat hangers.
yeah.
And because there was someone sick in our house, she had weird internal bleeding. So I studied dowsing, and then I mapped out where the ley lines were under the earth. I did the same thing. I asked the water, where were you causing that friction that was causing her to get ill? Well, it showed me through the confirmation with dowsing rod. We moved her bed, and her internal bleeding went away.
Yeah, there's ley line, there's not ley lines, but there's geopathic lines, and lines that move through the earth. And it's not good to be on one, but if they cross and you're living in that cross, I knew a guy in Denver who had about 1,000 buildings where people lived in, apartment buildings. And he said he had this one building that everybody that moved in died. And there was nothing wrong with the building. They had it checked, but states, everything, there was nothing wrong, because they didn't know about this crossing of these 2 lines on there. And so he finally, I says, there's nothing you can do. You just got to level this building and don't let anybody ever live there, because they're always going to have this problem. And so he did it, got rid of it.
Wow.
And
you know, sorry, go ahead, Drunvalo.
The other thing is if they cross, it's one thing, but if they make a triangle, like you have a cross, and then another one comes like this, so it makes a little triangle in there, that is a serious place that you do not want to live in. And if people do, that's where all the heroin addicts and all the prostitution, everything, all that kind of stuff, it will be there. And if the line goes down a street, it won't happen on the other side of the street. It'll only happen on one side of the street. And we saw that when we were in Mexico City studying them, and we had to show that to them, and that was the only way we got their confidence once they saw that we could see these things.
And here's a fascinating connection that I probably didn't tell you, that these technologies were developed with a very fine dowsing tool. I don't know if you heard of it. It's a Lecker antenna. That was one of the tools that was used to develop and refine this.
There's a lot of them out there, and I've tried a lot of them, and they're good, but I just prefer. I prefer, first of all, rather than a willow tree, better than a willow tree is nylon.
Oh,
nylon tubes, you can get them solid, and they're bend and everything, and they can't break off. They'll last forever. Once you have them, they're good forever. I don't know what it is about nylon, but they tune to water better than anything I know of. And,
thank you for that.
And you can just buy two, and then you tape one end of it and hold the other two ends out like that, so it can't point. And try it, you'll see. It's amazing. And the other thing that works, what is it? There's another thing that works.
Pendulums?
Well, no, pendulums are part of the dowsing things. You have to have pendulums. It saves so much time because you don't have to go through everything. You can just quickly find approximately where you are, and then you can go for it. Well,
copper?
No. It isn't a different material. It's a different way of doing things. And so if I remember it, I'll tell you.
That's okay.
You can tell them later when you do this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Well, thank you.
Can I just ask you one question?
Of course.
Drunvalo, is what message would you have for the world in terms of water now, specifically on World Water Day?
Well, we are only a short time away from our oceans being dead. And what that means scientifically, there is no life in the water, or very, very little. So everything, it means the whales and the dolphins and everything else are going, the sharks, everything else. Well, I don't know about, actually, I have thought about that, and the whales have been around for 500 million years. And so they were alive when the oceans had this level of carbon dioxide in it before. And there are certain sharks that have also been in there before. But most things right now are going to go. There's just, and that means that the food level in the for the world is going to drop rather dramatically very soon. And I really think this is going to happen within 3 years. But scientifically, they said it could go maybe as long as 8 years. And that is just such a huge thing. And and I mean, I when I found this out, I didn't know whether to cry or just what. I mean, it's just, I mean, here we've got different political parties saying that there is no climate change; it's all natural, and in a way, they're correct, because like the cycle of the ice ages, which is about 100,000-year-old cycle. You have about 90,000 years of ice, and then about 10,000 years of warmth, and so some of these cycles are very old, and I'm just getting tired, you guys.
Okay.
Well, as we draw this to a close, I just want to let everybody know that this is just the beginning, that we've come together, and this unity that's happening. around the planet on World Water Day. And I'm gonna place my water in front of the speaker, and if
Yeah.
I may ask you, Drunvalo, to help to close this with a beautiful guided meditation.
Okay. Let me have some water.
I'm gonna hold my Omni card over my heart.
Well, just everyone close your eyes and relax. And get your back as straight as you can, because it really does help. And to begin to breathe rhythmically. There's the same amount of time in as you're breathing out. That also balances your body automatically. And just remember that you have always been one with everything, all life everywhere, all that is, all that exists. This is true from the beginning of the creation, and it will be as long as there is a creation. You will always exist. You will never die. Every single person that's hearing this right now is immortal. The truth is, if you die because you want to, not because you have to. And that your energy here at this time, at this moment, was requested by the earth and the sun and the galaxy. They wanted you here. And I know that some of you remember how you got here and some of you don't. But you are here now for a very important mission, for a reason. And so trust yourself. Trust who you are. Trust in how you live your life, that even if it seems incorrect to you right now, you can change it. You can change anything. And you can become someone better if you wish. You just have to just do it. And then it becomes real. And there will come a time in your life that you're going to be asked to do something that is very, very necessary for all life everywhere. It isn't just here. There's something that's going on here that becomes solved across the universe that we know. In this little tiny planet, this little grain of salt in the middle of nowhere. We're here in this place, and all the negativity that's happening here is part of the cycle. We will change it at the right time, and everything will continue to move on into higher levels of consciousness. There's no reason for fear on any level at all. Water will help you if you let it. If you talk to your own water within your own body and ask it to be to structure it, and that all cells are in your body are surrounded by structured water, you will find that your health will get amazingly better. If you can't quite get there yet, then get one of the Omni cards from Kumara. They do work. I have one hanging over my bed, and I can feel it working. It's very good. And just trust yourself. Believe in yourself. Don't get lost in things that you think you're not doing right or wrong. Believe in everything that you do, and that you will change things according to the way that you know you have to. You can bring everything into beauty and joy, and love is the way that you get there. Love is the answer to every single question, and it is the answer to every single problem. God for all that we have. Thank you.
The waters are coming out of my eyes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Drunvalo Melchizedek. I love you. You're such a wonderful guide to all of us, and thank you for your dedicated work. And thanks for emerging with us on this beautiful World Water Day.
And thank you, Michael, for everything you're doing too,
Thank
and
you.
having these broadcasts, and this helps people, and helping people is what it's all about. And remember, you'll always help exactly the people that watch you.
Good point.
No, but I mean it's a setup. The Earth is deciding how these things happen, and all that she is, and the sun, and so you don't have to worry about how big it is or how many people there are or anything else. You are affecting certain people, and that's all that's necessary. Perfect.
Thank you, Drew. Drunvalo.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, and we will always be with you.
All right. Bye-bye.